A wild week after the USDA report. We are going to discuss that with Jerry Gidel, right there from Chicago, Illinois, with many, many thoughts on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, the USDA has tightened the corn stocks, but the market has reacted with lower corn prices. What's going on?
Well, that's always an interesting twist when you end up having the numbers come one way and then the market reaction goes the other. To some extent, potential for some profit taking, some after the report definitely was not impossible, considering that we've had such a significant rally in the market here going into it. Setting 7 and 8 year high prices on things, and that and the fact that we had. A number that went 100 million basically down. They did a minor adjustment of 5 million on food usage, but the 100 million expansion of exports actually was slightly higher than I was looking for from there. But the interesting thing is that the new crop side of this issue, that this is the first official set of numbers that the USDA puts out each year for the upcoming 21-22 crop years in the world and in the US. And so that particular number, though, was about 150 million higher than the so-called trade estimate at this point. Even the USDA's number is really a placeholder at this point. We've got a lot of issues still going on here with old crop situations in Brazil, and also what type of real demand we have here in the U.S. for feed demand, ethanol, those kinds of things. But the interesting twist is that the USDA's number for Brazil, no, significant drop. They took it down 7 million from 109 to 102 million metric tons. But everyone that seems to think they know in Brazil and other consultancies around the world thinks that number should be a lot closer to 95 to 97. I don't think anybody expected the USDA to go down there, but I think everybody expects them to get there eventually, and maybe even lower. The weather outlook for Mato Grosso and the central areas there, Mato Grosso do Sul and Paraná, and those areas, the dry season has already come, folks. It has not. It's not coming back either. That's the problem. I think some people think that there might be a miraculous, huge rainstorm all of a sudden come and save this corn crop. Once the dry season sets in and it's pulled back significantly into the Amazon, you might get a few sky showers that work up from Argentina, but that isn't going to make a big difference. So that's a real factor. And then this year, of course, we've talked about it all year. The lateness of the plantings has really put a significant portion of that crop in trouble. But, did that help us in the last few days? No. It came from a combination of numbers that didn't surprise anybody, and probably the bizarrest situation that happened on Wednesday afternoon after actually it started in the morning, but it really got lots of publicity after the crop report, was the fact that all of a sudden a major problem developed on the U.S. Mississippi River. It turns up that a significant bridge that goes from Tennessee to Arkansas out of Memphis developed a crack in its structure. And so all of a sudden, all the powers that be decided, we better stop and take a look at this thing. They took the traffic off of it. They stopped the barges that were proceeding underneath it. And then I've been on that bridge. It's a very high bridge because the fact that it comes off the bluffs of Tennessee before it goes into the lower grounds of Arkansas and that. So it's if you're driving across there and going to Arkansas, sometimes you wonder if you're not way up in the sky. But that being said, that caused a real consternation. Say, oh no, now we're not going to get this corn down. Now the demand numbers on exports are not going to be there. Lots of then once you have people that are investors in this market get in, they then decide to put their stops in the market. Okay, I better get, I don't want to stay in this thing if it's going to get lower. Well, it came into a kind of a waterfall of stops underneath the market. And that's what pushed things down on Thursday and kept things on the defensive today a little bit going into the last day of the week.
Well, on the soybean side of things, I think it's a different world. We are seeing for the August futures 12 cents up.
Well, that's the twist of it here is that the market reactions here, people involved in spreads between corn and soybeans, people involved between corn and wheat, that type of thing. A lot of people long corn, short wheat, long beans, short soybeans. All those people decided that this wasn't their day to be involved in those spread relationships. And I think those spread relationships had real merit. But in sometimes when the market gets a little excited about things, it doesn't really care about what the fundamentals are saying. It's get me out type of orders. Now, the interesting thing is on the soybean side of the USDA statistics that were released on Wednesday, the okra beans, I was hoping they might change a little in exports and take up imports, but they didn't do either one. They just left it unchanged. And I don't think anybody really anticipated anything different because of the fact that export sales had slowed down a little bit and we had some room to before we really run up against it. The corn we didn't. That was the old twist of it. The corn we were right at the USDA's estimate, so they really had to do something there. On the soybean side, there are 30 million that they increased last month. There wasn't any particular pressure on that. From there, also there continued to be some rumors floating around. And I think that there was a report out today that 240 million metric tons, 240 million, not million, thousands of tons was going to be shipped to the U.S. That's a significant amount of numbers. It hasn't been biggest since 2014, but you calculate out that's 8.7 million. USDA already has a 35 million expectation for this year. So actually up until now, there hasn't been any real imports from Brazil. And maybe we've done 5 or 6 million out of Eastern Canada into the US. So in reality, we got plenty of room for importing things here in our statistics that we already have. So that doesn't really make that doesn't mean we won't see some more imports in that. And I think that is a possibility because I think the demand for crush and potentially some exports here could still push the limit on those soybeans from there. But the other twist of it is that the new crop beans stocks were only estimated 140 million. And that 140 million is only 20 million increase. Now, the one thing that has everybody, saying, oh man, that bean number is too low on the spring planting. Same thing on corn. These prices are so good, this kind of stuff. But so in reality, that 140 million probably higher because we have more plantings. I wouldn't say we wouldn't increase 500,000 or something like that. And in reality, we probably need to actually increase 1 million to 1.5 million minimum just to make sure that we have a better carryover potential down the road. 140 million to start the year that's just dirt. There's just no wiggle room there at all. If we have any kind of weather problems, we're going to be having lots of emotions here. And I think that's part of the reason why the new crop beans were holding up together today, comparison to, the corn market was defensive, and then as I said, some of the spring spreaders between the two decided to bail out of that corn bean ratio spreads they had on.
Well, one big difference from soybeans compared to corn is that the Brazilian supply is very impressive this year.
Oh, yeah, I really feel that their 136 million metric ton number probably very close. Maybe it's down one or two or up one or million. It's not going to change a lot at this point from there. Like the corn side of this issue in Brazil is there. I guess it's going to be kind of interesting as to how the final stages of Argentina's crop turns out to be. The first portion of their bean crop this year, the one that was planted at the same time, or the spring period there, as they were doing the wheat harvest and that, because interestingly enough, Argentina has kind of two split crops there. Like in the U.S., there's chances for double cropping on after wheat with soybeans, and the first crop though that was put in got impacted by a lot of the dry weather that was down there early. I've heard some pretty poor yields. So the second crop has had better moisture in that, so maybe it's going to keep together there at that 47 million USDA's looked at. But that could be a little interesting one there. But the key question is as we all looking down the road, is what's China going to do here? They've been a huge buyer of beans, and both in Brazil and South America, along with the U.S. They're not buying beanie from the U.S. right now. But the one thing they have been buying is corn. Wow. They bought 5.1 million metric tons of new crop corn, even within 1.3 million metric tons today. That all started last Friday. That's an interesting twist here. To some extent, that always makes me feel very nervous when a longtime world purchaser of corn and soybeans and supplies in general decides to step into a market, and that they definitely want to make sure they have corn available to their expanding pork production over there. But that is still a significant adjustment, and that total number there turns out to be about I think I calculate that thing just under 40 million per metric ton, or excuse me, and that in general, that's going to be a 200 million more exports to them than they started out the year here, and that's significant. So how that all fits into where we're at. Maybe they've got a better weather forecaster than some of us in the U.S. and they were deciding that this crop price right now is still pretty competitive, because if you think about it, the last 2 days prices, they bought a lot of that at higher prices than the last 2 days.
And are you seeing a continued increasing demand for replacements like sorghum or wheat?
Well, that's the thing too. Sorghum has been extremely strong all year, and I kind of felt like that in certain areas of the country, Kansas into the Texas area where they do grow a lot of sorghum, that would be a factor in limiting some of our corn acres being planted on an overall basis, and I still think that's going to be the case, because I know that the one thing it probably added to some of the excitement here the last couple of days. After having a pretty significant dry period west of the Mississippi, I don't care if you're looking at Kansas, Nebraska, the Dakotas, even much of Texas and Oklahoma, things were pretty dry, and it looked very ominous if you looked out past there into the Rocky Mountain states and that going out. And this week there is a kind of an interesting storm pattern developing between I'd have to say just north of Kansas City, down through the eastern half of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Some significant rains developing, and kind of a strange pattern that doesn't normally happen. You tend to end up having it moving from Texas into the Ohio River Valley. You take it from the Pacific Northwest and you move it across to Iowa and then Illinois and into the Ohio River Valley. having it just go straight up and down, quite unusual, but that's going to be helpful for those people there. And that's probably part of the reason we had some of this profit taking too. But the interesting thing is that the wheat crop is moving right along here, and particularly parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Heavy rains at this time of year would probably not be what the doctor ordered in either of those states here, because of the fact that that could cause the wheat crop to fall, and basically they have it lay on the ground, and that doesn't help you get it harvested, or does it? It could end up developing some type of diseases with that kind of heavy rain too. So those are warning factors out there on that side of the thing. But the world out here this week, lots of strange things coming at it after basically very strong market up there, led by the Brazilian crop problems down there, and that along with ideas at least that the U.S. crops are going to be tight, and I think the data is still there saying it is tight.
Should we be prepared for more volatility next week?
I guess think that's the word of the day here is volatility at this point. I'd say the other thing that kind of added to today's setback in the profit taking is that it came in mid to late session here. A very prominent U.S. consultancy in Memphis decided that they had an idea that this corn acres are going to expand. I don't disagree that could come from the less than 92 million number, the 96.8 million number they came up with today. I have a hard time coming up with where that comes from. We've already put the big area that we've had prevent plantings the last 2 years and combine the two together in corn and soybeans has been North and South Dakota. Interestingly enough, the USDA's spring period, spring intentions had 2 million increases in both corn and soybeans coming out of those two states. So they've really pretty well taken the substantial acres that were haven't been planted up there and already put those into our numbers. So all of a sudden, if you're going to have a significant change like that go up, and that I'm kind of my head shakes as to where some of these numbers come from along the way. I'm not denying that there can't be an increase in corn acres, and even beans. Actually, as I said before, needs to increase. Hopefully, we do assume that, but I'm not sure that the number that you can calculate looking at the economics is how the producer out there is going to react to this thing, because this is late in the period here where the nationwide totals on corn, we're talking a number here that's in the high 60s at this point, and probably even further along, and I have not heard that kind of rumble out here in the Western Corn Belt about switches over from corn to, they got to switch out of soybeans, and the other places got to plant more soybeans if you're going to have the jumps in corn acres out there that these numbers project at this point. So I know that they took a little out of the cotton acre, but boy, if you look around, the cotton acres in Texas don't really, if you don't plant them down there to cotton, they might get a few sorghum acres in there, but there's not going to be corn and soybeans in Texas. So there's another one that just say, how do these all balance out? But right now, at least the market will be looking at what's going on in Brazil next week. If there's no particular rains in that area, and Argentina's situation isn't, well, I wouldn't say at this point they're drowning in moisture down there either. And that I think this market's going to find us a little bit of sea legs here and start looking at how things are really put together. Today's last 2 days here have been a little bit of rock the boat. I'm not sure I actually mentioned it here that the issue on the Mississippi River that was a problem for 2 days there, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday. They supposedly have went ahead and let the barges move southward from Memphis to the Gulf, and so that issue it's things are a little bit behind, but we're not going to have a major problem in exports not being shipped because the barges weren't there. 2 days is not going to stop the U.S. Gulf from exporting the corn that they have already got sold. And I think the Chinese at this point still probably need it. So we'll see if that's the case.
And that's a wrap from Jerry Gidel. Thank you, Mr. Gidel.
Always good to be with you as always, Louis. And next week should be another one to keep our head turned on.